Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you've had a great day today in spite of the circumstances, listening to some great presentations. I am here to present the power of project leadership. And my first point really is, why are we here? And I don't mean that in a philosophical way. Why are we here on the planet? I actually mean, why are we attending this conference about project management? Why does PMI go through the effort of organizing all these local chapter events? And I think the simple answer is because we still have a lot to learn about leading projects. If all projects were delivered on time, on budget, within scope, the right quality, and we delivered the benefits that the clients and customers wanted, maybe there will be no PMI conferences. But that's just not the situation. The situation is that too many projects continue to fail. And I have some statistics for you here, and most of the statistics are from PMI's Pulse report. If you're not familiar with PMI's Pulse report, I strongly recommend you Google it. The PMI does a lot of research, and several times a year, they publish these reports. And the first statistic you can see here is from one of their recent reports: 40% of strategic initiatives fail. That's obviously quite a large amount. The second one, 48% of projects are not delivered on time. Right, that probably, unfortunately, doesn't surprise us that much. 69% meet their goals and business intent. And well, okay, it's 69%, is not too bad, but there's a long way to go still. And the last statistic I have for you here is from the UK, where I'm based in London. This is from the Infrastructure and Projects Authority, which is a government body. And they say that less than half had a green or amber green status. And these are big government schemes we are talking about. So we can take a step back, and I know statistics can be used in many different ways. And that's why I've taken 4 different statistics here that show that we still have a long way to go. And I think we know that from all the workshops I run in different countries. I always get the same feedback. You know, organizations are not great, still not great at delivering projects very well. And we might wonder why that happens, because actually we do a lot of training. There is a lot of awareness around projects now. But to my mind, one of the reasons why we still see these failure statistics is that projects and their environments are becoming more and more complex. And complexity doesn't just mean a complex solution, technically complex. It means they're more complex because we have more stakeholders involved. We have people working from different parts of the globe, distributed teams, virtual teams, and we have technological change that's happening faster and faster. So all of these things add to complexity. I mean, look at the situation at the moment. We are all so connected. When something happens in one part of the world, we all feel it. That adds complexity and risk to our projects. And so the premise of this presentation is that we need to do something different to make sure that our failure statistics begin to change for the better. We can no longer do what we've always done. We need more than simply continuing to learn about project management through the tools and the techniques. We need more leadership, because leadership is the answer to complexity. And I recently came across this report from McKinsey & Company, and they support a lot of actually my message here as well, which is that we need leadership. And you see here on the horizontal axis, project size and complexity, and on the vertical axis, organizational capabilities required to deliver. And the science of project management, what they refer to here is methodology, systems, and processes. You always need an extent of that. But as your project begins to increase in size and complexity, you need a lot of what they call the art of leadership. That's much more about the mindset. Now, the next slide shows you a little bit more about what they call the missing piece of the puzzle here in blue. The missing piece of the puzzle: leadership, collaboration, trust, mindset, ownership, and coaching. And that's exactly what my presentation is about. The power of project leadership is all those blue bits. It's the missing piece. The top part, the gray part, the science, well, we have that to some extent. We have the processes and the plans and the risks and the schedule. We can still get better. We can still get better at that top part, the science of project management. That's where most of our training is around. But we still have this missing piece of the puzzle. Now, I want to share a little bit about my own journey and how I got tuned into the importance of leadership and projects. And what you see here is a picture of the City of London. This is not where I'm not currently sitting in one of those skyscrapers. I wish I were. I'm sitting at home at the moment. But this is where I spend a lot of my time leading big projects for some financial institutions in London. And at some point, this is over 10 years ago now, I was running the largest project for the bank I was working at. And I did realize through that project that actually leadership was the missing piece. I had this complete aha moment. I went onto a leadership course, and I was coached for the first time. And I just, through all the leadership work we did that week, through the coaching I did, I had this complete aha moment. Project managers need leadership. And that's been the journey I've been on ever since. It has led me to write a number of books. The first one is the Project Management Coaching Workbook, which I think at this point is very difficult to get hold of in printed version, but it still exists in electronic format. On Kindle. And then we have the Power of Project Leadership, which is the book that I'm really working with at the moment. And the second edition came out just not that many months ago, actually. And that's obviously a testimony to the fact that people are beginning to wake up to the importance of leadership and projects. And you can read more about it on my website, SusanneMadsen.com. And the book also has its own dedicated website, which is powerofprojectleadership.com. There's lots of free resources on there. I will actually mention that a little bit later in the presentation as well, to make sure you get the most benefit. Now, just to be absolutely sure, I want to make sure that we all understand the same things by management and leadership. Now, management is what you might think that, well, we could say that this is the science. Management drives the science of project management, which is what McKinsey talks about. When we are purely on the management side, then we are very task-oriented, transactional, and it's about doing things in the right way. It's about methodology, processes. And there's a lot of rational thinking, and there's a lot of cognitive intelligence. So we can see many managers who are very clever. They're very, very clever. They're very rational. They instruct people, right? They take control. They tell others what to do. And yeah, I think in many organizations, this is still a very predominant style. Obviously, we're seeing things in a little bit black and white. I'm setting it up like either or here. But there's a lot of overlap between management and leadership. But let's look at what goes in the leadership box, the art of leadership. Here we have people who are much more people-oriented. They are not just transactional. I give you this, you give me that in return. No, they are transformational. They help people to change. And it's not about doing things right, it's about doing the right things. So what are we focusing on? And as you see here, it's much more about mindset. It's much more not about what I know, but how I apply my knowledge, about my behaviors. How do I relate to others? So leaders are really good on projects at making sure everybody understands where we're going and inspiring people towards the goal. But they're also good at looking and communicating with each individual team member. What motivates each person? And to do that, you need a lot of emotional intelligence. And for me, that's one of the big differences between management and leadership. As you see on the right-hand side, leaders have that emotional intelligence. Whereas on the left-hand side, well, we have more cognitive intelligence. This is a bit black and white, and that is not really the intention. I'm setting it up in this way just to make the message come across. As I said, there's a lot of overlap. And actually, I'm not saying here that management is bad and leadership is good. I'm saying you need both. At the moment, we have a lot of management going on projects and not so much leadership. So we need more leadership, but we absolutely still need that science, the rational thinking. And the way you can think about it is you need to manage tasks and lead people. So you need to do both of these things. Now, you might wonder why Superman is in this picture. And Superman is there to illustrate what we sometimes refer to as the hero project manager. The person who comes in and saves the day, the person who takes control, who knows it all, very rational. And some organizations deliberately want this hero project manager to join their projects and to save the day, but it's not leadership. Because the super project manager, the superhero, believes that he knows all the answers and is not very good necessarily at engaging the team. It's all about me and what I know. So that's why I would put the super project manager, the superhero, more on the management side. And this leads me to the 3 common mistakes that I see project managers make. The first one is they manage tasks at the expense of leading people. Yeah, so the leadership piece is not really there. They focus on the urgent rather than the important. Now, in project management, it's all about being proactive, planning for the future, looking at what might go wrong, anticipating. It's about building relationships today that will help us tomorrow. Firefighting and dealing with the urgent is sometimes so easy, but that's not leadership, and project managers need to be focusing on that which is important, not just the fires that are burning right now. And the third mistake, we believe we have to know it all and do it all. And this is where Superman appears again, the superhero, the super project manager, the hero project manager. I know it all, because it cuts off the team. If you have a person who comes in and saves the day, what we're really saying is that the team is not part of that process. And Liz Wiseman talks about this as well. Liz Wiseman published this book a number of years ago now called The Multipliers. And in that book, she talks about the differences between diminishers and multipliers. And it very much plays into my message here today. Diminishers on the left-hand side, you could see them as somebody who, when they step into the room, they make other people feel small because they elevate themselves. A multiplier is somebody who makes other people feel smarter, who gets more out of their team. That's obviously where we want to get to. So diminishers believes that he's the smartest person in the room and has all the great ideas. But a multiplier will coach and teach in order to unleash the team's best thinking. And that really is very, very descriptive. A little bit further down here, we see a diminisher doesn't leave space for people to think through challenges themselves. No, because I have the answers. Whereas a multiplier creates a safe environment for team members to contribute. That's very important. It's a point I'm going to come back to, creating that safe environment and how to do that. A diminisher makes centralized decisions alone often, whereas a multiplier drives sound decisions through rigorous debate. So multiplier is still very, very challenging. They ask challenging questions, but they drive the debate because they want the team to do the thinking. They're empowering the team and giving ownership to the team. So this also helps us understand a little bit more about what we need good leadership to look like in an organization. And this piece about asking questions is really, really key. So if we pause for a moment here and say, okay, if you have to drop your superhero mentality, what comes instead? Well, it's asking more questions, because that's what draws in other people. It sounds so simple, but the power of a question can change the direction of a project. So these are 3 questions that we use a lot in coaching. What is the problem? What are we trying to change here? So you really need to understand the problem area, not just try and give people advice without understanding what the topic is. How might you resolve it? What have we tried? What have we not tried? What other ideas do you have? Yeah, get the team member to do the thinking. What action will you take? Yeah, that's a mini. If you just ask these questions a little bit more, you'll see that maybe something will start to shift on your project. Here are some more open questions. Yeah, remember that an open question is a question that cannot be answered with a yes or no. This is to connect with your team members. What's on your mind? You know, people go around, they worry about things, they have risks in their mind. How are you feeling? Ooh, feeling. We don't ask people on our projects how they're feeling, but this is part of the emotional intelligence. Yeah, understanding what's going on for people. If you have some team members who tend to go on and on and on about a problem, ask them the 3rd question. What's the real challenge for you here? That really drills into the real challenge. And there are some other questions you can ask here. They're all open questions. Here are examples of questions that you can ask of your team when everybody is gathered together. Which bad decisions have we made that need to be reverted? What are we not seeing that is new or different? What's working well for other teams that we can replicate? What if we had no constraints? What if we could start all over? These what if questions are really magical. What if we could start all over? What would we do differently? What are we not seeing? So these are really questions that shift the burden of thinking onto the team. That's exactly what a multiplier does. Do not believe you have all the answers. You know, in a complex scenario, in a complex world, you cannot have all the questions because the world is moving too fast. It's unreasonable to believe that the project manager should be this hero. No, you need to really draw on your team. So let me share a little bit with you about the science of high-performing teams. Google did a lot of research on this topic. Google have many teams, and I guess they set up a whole project to study why are some of our teams performing better than others. And they couldn't find, when they started looking at this, they couldn't find an obvious reason why some teams were performing better than others. They looked at how much people were being paid, if people were good friends outside of work, if they had flexible working, all of these things that you think might impact on performance, like the level of education, all those things they investigated, and they couldn't find any correlation between those factors and a team's level of performance. But they found something else. And this something else has been confirmed in other studies too, like the Harvard Business Review. They found that they could see with their eyes when a team was high performing and when a team was not high performing. Because high performing teams had different communication patterns. In high performing teams, everybody was communicating with everybody in the team. And everybody was contributing in roughly equal amounts. Let me say that again. In a high-performing team, every team member was contributing, speaking in roughly similar amounts. That means that the introverted people were coming forward and speaking, and the extroverted people were holding themselves back a little bit. Why does that matter? It matters because this creates an environment where everybody's coming forward with their thoughts, with their ideas. We get all engines firing, not just the project manager and those 2 super developers over there in that corner, super engineers or whatever. No, everybody in the project are contributing equally. But how do we get there? If we take a step back, how do we get to a stage where everybody is fully engaged, where everybody is communicating? Well, that comes back to a word that we call psychological safety. As a project leader, I need to make sure that my team members feel psychologically safe. If they don't feel safe, they're not going to come forward and share what's on their minds. How can I make people feel safe? By actually saying, as a project leader and project manager, you know, I'm not perfect. You don't have to be perfect. I sometimes make mistakes. You can make mistakes too. So you take some of the pressure off. Ironically, you take some of the pressure off. That makes the team more likely to come forward to contribute with all of their ideas. So that's really something that I think is mind-boggling, because on projects, again, we tend to have this project manager who has a little bit of that hero mentality, who just wants to make a decision and move forward very quickly. But we cut off the team in that process. Instead, pause a little bit, take time to engage everyone by asking questions. So for instance, at the end of a meeting, when 3 people have spoken and the others haven't, ask some of those other people, what do you think? You haven't said so much today. I would like to hear your view as well. And this slide kind of summarizes a little bit those dimensions that affect high-performing teams. For the leader to show that vulnerability and be socially sensitive. Socially sensitive means that if I'm very extroverted, I'm sensitive to others, I give space to others. It also means that I'm aware of how other people are doing. So I'm sensitive to other people's emotional needs. Slow down, take the counsel of team members. Yeah, don't just rush forward, because if you rush forward too quickly, you're going to cut off people who have very valuable opinions, but who may not be sharing them readily. I have a few questions for you to take with you and reflect on your own projects at the moment. Are people on your project trying to contribute, but they're being ignored or cut off, either by you or other team members? Do you do most of the talking personally at meetings without giving others enough space to participate? Are you personally able to show vulnerability and signal to others that it is okay to fail? So I would like you to take these questions away and reflect on them. Perhaps take a screenshot. And if you can answer yes to any of these questions, well, the next step is what can you do about it? How can you begin to scale back a little bit, lead from behind, and ask more questions of your team? I also encourage you to check out Patrick Lencioni. He has written a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and there is a very, very good recording of him online where he's speaking at the Royal Albert Hall in London. It's about a 40-minute recording, and he talks about these 5 dysfunctions of a team. And trust and vulnerability are 2 big topics that he also talks about in there as being the foundation for high performance. So it very much speaks to the science that we have just seen from Google's research. And on the topic of trust, let's look a little bit more at how you can build trust, either with team members or with stakeholders. And there's 4 elements here. The first element is you must be competent and capable. Now, I don't think that's normally an issue with professionals. This is the science of project management. Yeah, know your numbers, etc. Normally that's okay. What we struggle with a little bit more is to create this connection, to be empathetic with others. How do we show empathy? How do we really connect with others? By asking questions and listening, seeing situations from the other's point of view. The third element is honesty and being reliable. Now, most project managers, I know, they don't walk around lying, but they sometimes overpromise. And when you overpromise, what happens when you don't deliver on your promises is that it impacts how much people trust you. It impacts how reliable you are. So be very, very careful not to overpromise. And when risks and issues come up, it's very important that you are transparent about those risks and issues. You don't want your stakeholder or your team member to hear about an issue from somebody else down the corridor. You want to control, not control is not the right word, but you want to be transparent with project communication. Make realistic promises, be open about risks and issues, and clearly communicate. Perhaps everything is going well on your project, but your stakeholder is not hearing anything from you. You need to keep people informed regularly. And one of the best questions you can ask a stakeholder is, how would you like me to communicate with you? If we have an issue, or if we have a risk, how would you like me to inform you? Would you like me to call you? Would you like me to email you? Would you like me to write it in the weekly report? Would you like to hear nothing? So do ask that question and reflect on where you are strongest in these 4 elements, where you are weakest, and where you need to put in more effort. And another really good tip is to deepen your communication with either everyone on your project, whether it's stakeholders or team members. So we have 4 levels here. And the first level is where we tend to communicate most of the time. Yeah, we focus on issues, on facts, on figures. So you really talk about deliverables, you talk about issues, estimations, perhaps, all of that stuff we are very comfortable talking about. This is probably 80–90% of our conversations. But if you want to go more into the leadership space, build better relationships, access the team better, motivate people better, build better relationship with your stakeholders, you also have to go to level number 2. This is below the iceberg. This is not necessarily what we're seeing. This is more about when something is going to get done. So the planning, sequencing, time, duration. Topic, the first one, content and topic, is what we're going to do. The second one here, process and procedure, is how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it, who's going to do it. So potentially as project managers, we also spend some time, you would hope, on this second level. But the third level now is getting really challenging. This is about interactions and behaviors. So really what we're saying here, you must focus on not necessarily, not just what you're doing on the project and when you're doing it, but how people are getting on with each other. You need to focus on behaviors. You need to talk about what we expect from each other. Giving feedback. This is all part of this third level. And the fourth level, we're going even deeper down into feelings, emotions and feelings. How are people feeling on your project? Are they motivated? What is going on for them? We go back to some of the questions we asked before. How are you feeling? What do you want more of or less of on the project? So I really encourage you to deepen your levels of communication to move more into that leadership space. So up until now, we've been talking about the 7 keys to project leadership. They're all taken from the book. I've probably spent most time really talking about the 4th key there, empower the team, a little bit about build trust with stakeholders. And I just want to touch upon very briefly a very powerful technique. You see here, it's the 6th key, use powerful techniques. And the technique I'm going to share with you is collaborative planning, because we do need to plan. We already know we need some of the science, we need some of the management, but how you plan with people say a lot about your leadership style and your engagement. So many project managers feel that they have to do all the planning themselves, and I think that is completely misunderstood. You need to involve the team in the planning. So this 4-step process that I'm talking you through here now is a way to plan collaboratively. You take a stack of Post-it notes, good old-fashioned ones, we all know what they look like. You ask all team members to write down separately on post-it notes everything they feel needs to get done on the project within the scope of the project. Ask everybody to do a silent brainstorm, writing down loads of things they feel need to get done. One item, one task per post-it note. Then you get the team to share what they've written down. You remove duplicates, and then you end up with lots of post-it notes about everything that needs to get done on your project. You can then, step number 2, organize all of these tasks into work streams or categories. From there, you begin to build your schedule. Here you have a timeline at the top. You have all of your categories down the left-hand side, and then you simply begin in collaboration with the team on a big whiteboard or having a flip chart paper lined out. They begin to place the post-it notes. This is not a scientific process, but it's the first step to understand dependencies, who is doing what, and the team gets an appreciation for those dependencies. Very, very important, because many team members just sit in their own little silos. And the last step here is that you can identify milestones. On this picture here, they are the yellow diamond shapes. And you can also draw out the critical path. Everything in collaboration. You are there perhaps as a moderator, but try not to take too much control of the meeting, because if you take too much control and think you have all the answers, again, you're cutting off the rest of the team. So if you would like to know more about this technique, obviously it is mentioned in the book, but also I have so many free resources online. I have YouTube videos where I'm going through this technique. There are resources on my own website. It's all free. You can sign up. Actually, there's no sign up anymore. You can just go into the website and download the resources. And also, of course, please connect on LinkedIn, where you'll find more information. So the last piece I really want to share with you is to emphasize the importance of emotional intelligence. If you need to study anything, study psychology and aim to increase your level of emotional intelligence. I think that's my biggest tip for you. You see here there are broadly 4 categories of emotional intelligence. David Goleman talks a lot about that, and his book Emotional Intelligence is one of the founding pieces here. We have self-awareness. That's really where it starts. You know, begin to notice what's happening for you, how you are feeling. Because if you're not connected with your own emotions, you also cannot be connected with other people's emotions. So begin to reflect, begin to journal, and perhaps even strengthen your coaching skills. Social awareness is about being able to empathize with others, connecting with others, asking questions, listening. We talked about that through all the questions you can ask other people. And then you have self-management at the bottom. Self-management means that you need to be able to manage your impulses. As a leader, you can't just say that you are, you can't just show your anger all the time. Don't suppress your emotions, but also the idea here is that you are aware of your emotions, when to show them and when not to show them. And relationship management, all about building trust, being inclusive of others, engaging your stakeholders. Excuse me. So this is a very big, very quick tour, you know, a 2-minute overview of emotional intelligence, which absolutely doesn't do it justice. This presentation is not about emotional intelligence, but I would like to encourage you to really dive into it and to look at what you can do in all of these 4 areas to strengthen your emotional intelligence, because that's what helps define you as a leader. In summary, drop the superhero image. Instead, do more coaching and create debate with your team. Ask more open questions. Create a safe environment and personally begin to show more vulnerability, because it will give other team members permission to also show their vulnerability. Build trust. Very important. You need to build up your trust balance, like a bank account. Because the day when you make a mistake, which we all invariably do, then you already have built up some trust with your stakeholders, so you can afford to make a mistake. Deepen your communication. Get down into the levels. Don't just talk about what you're delivering and when you're delivering it. Talk about our behaviors, our expectations. How are we doing? How are we getting on with each other? What do we expect from each other? Set some ground rules. Involve the team and plan collaboratively. Develop your emotional intelligence. And the last piece, really, that I would encourage you to do is to ask for feedback. This is one of the most important habits of a leader. You ask, what shall I stop doing? What shall I continue to do? And what shall I start doing? What shall I start, stop, and continue to do? Because only with feedback will you know what you need to change and improve on. And with that being said, let us open up for some of the questions that you have provided to us. Thank you very much for listening so far.